Allison, I think, are we ready to go?
Yes, we are.
All righty. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming out this morning to our 2021 grant workshop. It's brought to you by the Endless Mountains Heritage Region. We'd also like to thank the Wyoming County Chamber of Commerce for getting this going. They helped us with setting up the webinar, so we really appreciate their assistance. We'd also like to thank our panelists for joining us this morning. We have a number of great organizations represented from all across the state. We will first hear from Christine DeTore from DCNR, Northeast Regional Advisor. We also have Paul McNoskey from the Department of Community and Economic Development. He's a regional director. We have Jamie Dunlap from the PA Council on the Arts. She is the Chief of Creative Catalysts and Lifelong Learning. Jean Ruff from the Endless Mountain Visitors Bureau. She's the Executive Director there, as well as the Executive Director from the Bradford County Tourism Promotion Agency. Robin Cummings is with us. We also have Karen Arnold from the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. She is the Keystone Historic Preservation Grant Manager, and she will be joined by Brian Van Sweden. He's also with the PHMC and is the Susquehanna Region Community Preservation Coordinator. Finally, we'll have Ethan Sexton, Northern Tier Regional Planning and Development Commission's Community Development Program Manager. I am Kane Chamberlain. I am the Executive Director of the Endless Mountains Heritage Region, and we'll be talking a little bit about our grants program we have coming up here at the end of the month. So basically, I would just like to thank everyone for coming this morning. Hope you all get some good information. I know COVID has been incredibly tough on so many different organizations, businesses, municipalities. I mean, there's really nothing it hasn't affected in some way, shape, or form. So we hope this will help you in exploring and pursuing some new funding opportunities to get your organization or entity back on track. So basically, we're just going to get started. I would like to start off with Christine DeTore from DCNR, our Northeast Regional Advisor.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to start to share my screen, and hopefully with the folks that I can see, they can let me know. Are we good to go? Can you see the presentation?
Sure are.
Okay. So for those of you that are on the call, good morning and welcome. If you have attended one of our past workshops, the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, we hosted our workshops virtually in the fall. This is a shortened version of that workshop, so it's going to go a little quicker. And then my understanding is, Kane, we are saving all questions till the end of all the presentations if we can?
Yes, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end. Basically, what that's essentially work like the chat box. You can just type your questions. I'll read them aloud to whoever needs to answer them. Just make sure you note who you're directing your question toward.
Right, but they can start entering those questions at any time, correct?
I believe so.
Okay.
There should be a Q&A thing at the bottom of your screen.
All right, so here we go. We'll start moving forward. So we are the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. I work with the Bureau of Recreation and Conservation. We have a mission to be a leader in providing recreational opportunities for all to enjoy, protecting the Commonwealth's natural and heritage resources, and advancing the greening of Pennsylvania. One of the ways we do that is by working with our partners, the municipalities, local land trust organizations such as Endless Mountains Heritage Area, our visitors bureaus, trail organizations. That's more than the best way we get our information out is to partner with our other organizations. So like I said, we are in the midst, our grant round just opened up on January 19th. We started our workshops back in November. They are open until April 14th at 4 p.m. What happens after your grant application is submitted, we will be reviewing and ranking all of those applications. Everything is done on a scoring basis. We normally announce in the fall. This year, actually last year was one of our earliest announcements in the 5 years that I've been with DCNR. And last year, regardless of COVID, it was the most applications we received in the 10-year period of the Community Conservation Partnership Program. So typically after we do announcements, your project, this is a project you're not starting until sometime in 2022. So you get the grant contract in January, and then usually the spring and summer of 2022 is when you're starting your project. Our funding sources, we have several funding sources. Our major funding sources is the Keystone Recreation Park and Conservation Fund. We also receive dollars from Growing Greener. This year, we've had an increase in the Land and Water Conservation Fund. That is the new outdoor program, that Outdoor Recreation Act that was just passed not too long ago by the federal government. And then we also receive funds from our Federal Recreation Trails Program, our PA Snowmobile Restricted Account, and our PA ATV All-Terrain Vehicle Restricted Account. So every year we develop priority and we work with our partners to make sure that the projects that they are submitting are consistent with our priorities. We usually develop those priorities from our statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, or SCORP. One thing we realized with the state is we like our acronyms. Our new statewide outdoor comprehensive recreation plan was just developed, and it goes from 2020 to 2024. One key that you'll see or resounding that goes through each year is we're focusing this year on recreation for all, access for all. So our priorities for our 2021 grant applications are community parks and recreation. That would be planning and development projects that focus on access for all and rehabilitation. Rehabilitation of existing parks is usually our #1 most received applications. We also accept applications for land conservation and watershed protection, whether you're protecting critical habitat, looking to protect climate resilient lands, forested watersheds, or riparian corridors. We also are looking to create those critical connections between public or conservation lands. We're also looking at watershed restoration and river implementation programs, projects that enhance public access to Pennsylvania's watersheds, ones that improve Pennsylvania watersheds, and then ones that improve riparian forested buffers. Our priority for our trails program this year is closing our priority trail gaps. Along with the statewide outdoor recreation plan, we just finished its companion document, the statewide trails and water trails plan. That should be coming out fairly soon. So when you're submitting your grant applications, it is recommended that you look at both, whether it's a trails project or whether it's a recreation project and conservation project, you should be looking at our statewide outdoor recreation plan or our trails plan. One of the things I indicated earlier was recreation for all. We're looking at addressing a recreation access need in what we're calling a medium or high need area, or serving an underserved population or an area. Both of those items could be addressed in the statewide outdoor recreation plan through a project we did with the Trust for Public Land. There's information on access needs in medium or high need areas, and also areas that are being underserved. So this is our homepage, just a screenshot of our homepage, how you would access our grant portal and a lot of our other information. As you can see down in the bottom, the grant portal is highlighted. That's where you would click to actually access our portal to start a grant application. Again, we have, there are 6 regional staff, 6 areas that have regional staff like myself across the state. As you can see, I serve as the regional advisor for what we call the Northeast section of Pennsylvania. Lauren Possinger, who is my regional manager, is familiar with the area, and he has some of our Southeast counties. But if you are working on a project in any of the counties across the state, it is highly recommended that you reach out to your regional advisor. We can't stress that enough. So what type of applicants do we serve through our Bureau of Recreation? We call it our larger program. Kane will be talking about the mini grant program later, but this is our larger grants. But who are the eligible applicants? Municipalities, municipal agencies, nonprofit organizations, pre-qualified land trusts, and in some cases, for-profit enterprises. With just about every program, there is a matching fund requirement. Most of our projects require a 50-50 match, so that would be a dollar-for-dollar match. When you're submitting your application, we need to know that the match is secured with letters of commitment, and it's not eligible. You cannot spend any of the match prior to the grant agreement. So anything that you're telling us that you're going to use as match, whether it's cash or non-cash, cannot start until January of 2022 when you're under grant agreement. So what types of match do we like? Cash, most federal funds, some state funds, most local funds, most private funds, non-cash, in-house labor, equipment use, donations of goods and services, and volunteers. There is a statewide rate for volunteers that you'd have to use, and there's more information in our grant portal how you would determine the rate that you would charge for using volunteer labor. So what are our eligible project types? I mentioned some of our priority areas, but the project types are planning, trails, our small communities program, our forest river buffers, our acquisition projects, development projects, river conservation, and our partnership program. We're just going to highlight these as we go through. So what is our planning projects? Usually our planning projects are projects that come in where the applicants are looking to develop a plan with strong public input to help guide future investments. So if you're doing a park and you're looking at developing future park amenities, we want to know that you did a master site plan or you did some type of development plan for that site. So normally what we see under planning are either comprehensive recreation park and open space plans. Here in the Endless Mountains, Wyoming County is going through one of those plans now. You either see a planning that could be a master site development plan. That's what's highlighted on this screen now is a master site development plan that was done for a project in York County. We also see the development of land conservation and stewardship plans. We also do swimming pool complex feasibility studies. We're actually working with the city of Scranton down here in Lackawanna County on a feasibility study that they're doing on their own to hopefully come to us for development funds. So when we look at swimming pool and even indoor recreation facilities, we really want to see those feasibility studies done before you come to either a development grant or a redevelopment grant. Acquisition, normally we see our acquisitions coming through our land trust applicants. We do have some municipalities that like to acquire land to develop new parks and recreation areas, but usually the acquisition applications are looking to secure land that involves critical habitat areas or natural areas. Again, park and recreation areas, greenways and open space. And there are two ways we can help you with acquisition projects. We can either help you through fee simple, which means you're acquiring the land, or permanent easements. And normally the term you hear is permanent conservation easements. We have a very successful trails program in the state. There are 3 different types of trail opportunities: motorized, non-motorized, ATV, and snowmobile. Again, those other planning types fall underneath the trail projects. We can be doing planning for trail projects. We can be doing acquisition for trail projects, development. In some cases, we assist with equipment purchases or even educational programs. With the ATV restricted account, we have 2 grant rounds per year. We actually have a parallel grant open right now for anyone interested in applying for the ATV and snowmobile projects. And then we will also open that in the fall again as well. So as I said, our park rehabilitation and new development is probably one of our most sought after grants. What we're looking for is rehabilitation and new development projects, either playgrounds, skate parks, sport fields, courts, rinks, again, swimming pools or splash pads after those feasibility studies have been done, pavilions and comfort stations, and indoor recreation facilities. And again, that would have to be after a feasibility study was done. Our average grant requests range from $100,000 to $250,000. So that would be the grant request. So you would have to double that to get the project amount. We do have a special small communities program. This is assisting municipalities that are doing small development projects that have a population of 5,000 or less. They're basic rehabilitation and development projects such as, again, playgrounds, pavilions, maybe improving your ADA accessibility. There is a smaller match requirement through our small communities program. The minimum grant request is 50,000, maximum is 70,000. And then the total project for our small communities program cannot exceed 110. Noting that 10,000 is earmarked for professional service fees that does not require a match, and 20,000 is earmarked for materials and equipment that does not require a match. So this is also our small communities program, and Region 2 is one of our most sought after grant opportunities, and we have been very successful in Region 2 with our small community program. We do a lot with river conservation programs. Grant applications, we look at these to support water-based outdoor recreation and resource conservation projects, such as river conservation planning, water trail enhancement, watershed restoration, habitat improvement. Really important for new public access development, fishing and boating facilities, viewshed access, and riparian buffer installation. That earlier study that was done by the Trust for Public Land that I mentioned really took a look at not only where access was needed to parks and recreation areas, but also to fishing and boating facilities. So information in that document can be found through our statewide outdoor recreation plan. We also do riparian forested buffers. These are buffers that would be along waterways, and the costs that we allow for that are landowner outreach, designing the buffer, site preparation and the installation of the buffer, getting the planting materials and the tree shelters, and having an establishment management for approximately 3 years after the riparian buffer is planted. We also work very well with our partners through our state and regional partnership program. This is actually a very successful program with our 12 heritage areas across the state and our 8 conservation landscapes. So we work closely with Kane's organization, your organization, the Endless Mountains Heritage Region, through our regional partnership funded program. We're looking at projects that convene, that provide education and training activities. There are some special purpose studies that we'll do. We have done some implementation projects, and this is how Endless Mountains Heritage Regions funds their mini grant program, is through our regional partnership grant. We also do some smaller local capacity building projects through what we call our peer program and our circuit rider. There's normally a separate webinar for these types of projects, and that was hosted back in January. So again, just to review, our grant round is open now. You go to our DCNR webpage to find that. This is what should highlight right now as far as all the grant opportunities that are open at this time. They close on April 14th at 4 p.m. Again, we want you to contact your regional advisor. So if you're thinking of a larger DCNR grant project for the Northeast, I would be the one to contact. And we also have our customer service number here listed. Those customer service questions would be related to having issues with the portal, which we know sometimes we have issues with the portal. So I know we're waiting for questions at the end, so I will stop my screen share and hand it back over to Kane.
Thank you, Christine. We appreciate that. Next up, we have Paul McNoskey from the DCED. He is the regional director there.
Thanks, Kane. I am going to try and share my screen here. Hopefully everybody can see it now. As Kane mentioned, my name is Paul McNoskey. I'm the regional director for the Department of Community and Economic Development. I cover 13 counties in the Northeast region. We have 6 counties in the Commonwealth that are broken out with regional directors. The department is a little bit different in that we have grant programs that are administered directly through the administration, and we're also a pass-through entity of grants that will come from whether there are other sources of revenue or pass through from the federal government. So a lot of our processes are different based on the individual types of grants that they are and who the source of the revenue is coming from. We have been very active recently with the COVID relief dollars, getting that out, some of the business programs, business relief programs. We've been charged with administering them, and we would expect to see that as the stimulus comes through the recently passed federal stimulus money. We expect to have some role in the administration of some of that grant money. Right now, my screen is not moving. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. So just some things I wanted to go over about the process of applying for our grants. I'll get into some of the specific grants a little bit more, but something that's extremely important that we try to stress is the importance of planning when you're looking for grant opportunities. Most of the grants that we see that are successful are part of a larger plan, either associated with the project itself or a community revitalization. So we try to encourage that whenever possible, and we do have resources that are available to assist with that as well. It does enhance the project. It allows for a little better community engagement and also defines the need to really get an idea what the project is and how it impacts your communities. And that's important when we're dealing with limited resources so that the folks in Harrisburg can get an understanding of how impactful this project is in a sense of the broader community and the buy-in it has from the community. And that's really related to the limited resources we're dealing with these days and the volume of applications that we receive. There are very few programs that we receive less applications than money we have. So it becomes competitive, and it's always in your best interest to have a full plan and a strong community support for your projects. We do have assistance for our municipal planning elements. We have our regional planners were brought back into our regional offices. Ted Ridzik is our local government policy specialist. So any municipalities that are looking to do planning work can utilize this service through our local government services department. And we can help with planning, and this planning is a broad term. It could mean you're planning from a municipal standpoint and also project-specific planning. So we do offer those services to assist and guide with anything that you may need to do to develop your plans. So there's a few different types of dollars and credits that you can receive through the department. Listed here: grants, tax credits, loan guarantees, loans, and bonds. Mostly we're looking at grants here and tax credits that we're dealing with. The loan guarantees, loans, and bonds mostly deal with business and economic development type of funding, which is available through the department, and certainly can answer any questions if you have specific questions on them. Right now, we're looking mostly at our grants and tax credit opportunities. Grants are never paid back, obviously, and they're a little bit more attractive when you're doing this type of work. So in the tax credit world, we do have some programs that work and operate basically the same as a grant in that they don't have to be paid back, but they generally require work on your part to find a funding partner who would make a contribution and then receive the tax credit. You get those. They get the credits. They can then use them when they file their taxes, and they get the credit, usually a percentage of the contribution that they can receive, and they can then use that to offset their taxes. A really important part of our process is our guidelines. We operate under the legislative authorization of programs that are statutory in nature, and then we establish the guidelines based on those rules. So each individual program in our world has its own set of guidelines, and they can be very different from one grant application to the other. So it's really important to get a sense of what is available under which type of grant, and then understand the eligibility both from an organizational standpoint and cost standpoint to understand where you can look for those dollars for different types of projects. The process to actually apply for grants through the department is we use the single application, and it's pretty basic. It's a standard form. Many of you who have dealt with the agency before are probably very familiar with this. It does cross multiple programs. So while you will have specific requirements under one program that you may not have under a different one, you're still using the same single application to get the basic budget information, narrative information. And then it's through addendas and attachments that you would add the specific grant information that's required for any specific program. One different thing about the structure of the grant applications that come through our office is they're not all administration directed monies. So the major entity that distributes money through our department is the Commonwealth Financing Authority. And that is an independent agency. It was established in 2004. And it has the 4 caucuses in both the House and the Senate, and then the administration are all members. And any money that goes through has to be unanimously approved by the CFA. That causes some problems from time to time. We're actually in one of those times right now where the meetings that will be scheduled to distribute the monies sometimes don't happen. So right now we were expecting our March 23rd CFA meeting to occur and have quite a few of our programs approved. Has been postponed at this point. We didn't get any guidance on when it will be rescheduled, but as of right now, that is currently not happening. So that's something that's out of the department's control, but we do provide all the information to the CFA for the analysis on that part within each of our programs that go through the CFA. So we do the analysis, we do the scoring, we present it to the CFA board, and they make the final decision. The CFA programs that exist out there are the Act 13, and there's multiple programs under Act 13. Alternative clean energy, business in our sites, the high performance buildings, multimodal, and the pipeline investment program. These will ebb from time to time. They will be funded and sometimes they will not. So that's a rolling year-to-year basis, and they generally have a specific window that they'll be open. And that is, it generally varies from year to year, and it can be changed by the Commonwealth Financing Authority as well. So usually what we try and do is I'll put announcements out when our windows are opening. There are some that have specific windows. We'll talk a little bit about them, and they generally follow that specific calendar. So the Act 13 portion of the Marcellus Shale Legacy Fund, that's money that comes from the impact fees in Marcellus Shale and is distributed through the CFA. There are multiple programs here, amended mine drainage, all these, I won't read all of them, but the one that we use a lot and a lot of times in conjunction with Christina DCNR is our Greenways, Trails, and Recreation program. And we do that on a lot of our programs and our grants, where we will work with other agencies to try and pair together our dollars with their dollars to get projects completed, and multimodal is one that we use that for as well. This window is currently open from February 1st to May 31st. So all these can be applied for under this window. We have also community development programs that are separate from the Commonwealth Financing Authority. These are administrative directed programs. Our municipal assistance program is designed for municipalities, and it can be used for planning and other related services to help a municipality get their operations and really streamline their operations. We generally will use this in conjunction with some of our other programs to fund initiatives, such as our strategic management program, which helps municipalities as well. The Keystone Communities program is another community development program that offers a broader use for community revitalization projects, and it's a good program in the sense that it has a wider scope of what can be used. The challenge in this program is it's limited in its dollars. So we usually see between $4 and $6 million come through the agency directed side. There is some legislative directed dollars that can be available. So that's something that you would want to talk to your legislators about. If you have projects that might fit into community revitalization, you can have those discussions about whether there's available money that they can help you secure. And then there's our neighborhood assistance program, and that is a tax credit program. This is one of our most powerful programs to use because of some recent changes. Specifically, and the most encouraging that I've seen in a long time in a program, is they opened this up with a category called rural initiatives. And basically it means any rural county is eligible for any project that would normally be eligible. So there's usually some location requirements for projects to make them eligible. In this case, if you're in Susquehanna County, Wyoming County, Bradford County, any of the rural counties, Sullivan County, you are eligible just by your location. So now your programs can fall under that. This is a tax credit program, so you have to find partners, but it's extremely powerful and it's a leveraged program. So we have roughly $36 million eligible in tax credits, and we leverage roughly $60 million a year out of this program. And it's very broad and powerful to use to get to know. So that's one that we'll want to talk a little bit more about. I'll skip through them there. Some of the things under our Keystone community that is eligible, I did the planning activities, facade grants, and these are mostly, again, for community revitalization. So back onto the neighborhood assistance program, it does require a nonprofit organization to be part of the application. They have to be the applicant because it is a requirement under the federal code that it's a 501c3 to receive the tax credits. So you'll use these organizations to help the community revitalization efforts, and they are the applicant. And they also will be part of you'll go out and secure the commitments from the companies that want to be part of it. This is an example where I talked a little bit earlier about the difference in the single application. This is a little more detailed in its application. There are addendums that have to be attached into it, and we follow the 4 Ps, and basically describing the place, the problem, the project, and the proposed outcome. And that becomes part of your narrative and part of the description, so that when it is being reviewed in Harrisburg, they can get a good understanding of what the actual project you're trying to accomplish is. So we talked a little bit about the importance of planning. It really is important, and it helps us get a better understanding and really gives us the comfort that when we're making these investments into the communities, that there's a strategic goal behind it and that it has buy-in from the community. And reach out to your legislators, because many of these programs, if they are going through the CFA, it would be very helpful to have support of your legislators. So we always encourage that, and garner support from your communities, whether it's commissioners or your local councils or township supervisors. We always encourage letters of support out for those projects as well. And strongly suggest you reach out to our office if you're going to do an application. There actually is a place on the ESA single application to check whether you were in contact with anybody from DCED. They do look at that, so then they can reach out to us if they have specific questions. So that's always a helpful tip as well. And that's about all I have right now. So I'll be happy to entertain any questions when we're all done. Thank you very much. And I'm going to see if I can stop sharing there. There we go. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate that. Next, we have Jamie Dunlap from the PA Council on the Arts. Jamie, you're up.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to today's session. And I'm going to do the same thing now. I'm going to share my screen with you all. And hopefully you are able to see it. Okay, great. So I'm going to do like a speed round of different grant opportunities that we have through the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts. Any questions that even aren't answered today, you can certainly reach out to me or some of the regional partners that I'll mention for more information. So with that, get my cursor here and we'll get started. So for those of you that don't know, the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts, we're a state agency. We are small. We are an office of 10 people, sometimes 11. So we're a small state agency under the governor's office, and we've been around for over 50 years. The mission of our agency is to really strengthen the cultural, educational, and economic vitality of communities across the Commonwealth through the arts. And we have a cross-cutting strategy of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we want to ensure that we're promoting equitable access for all Pennsylvanians to participate fully in creative life and different creative art forms throughout the Commonwealth. So that's just a little bit about who we are. And we accomplish those activities and our mission by providing grants to the arts, partnerships and initiatives, some of which I'll be talking about today, and then serving as a resource for arts-related information. So here's the big list of stuff I'm going to go over today. Like I said, I'm going to kind of move through it pretty quickly. So I'm going to hit the highlights for you, but please feel free to reach out to me after today's presentation and I can provide you with more information. So we're going to start out with something called AOAP Entry Track, and that stands for our arts organizations or arts programs around the Commonwealth. It's the entry track or the point of entry for those organizations or programs to receive general operating support from the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts. So that means funds that can go to salaries, keeping the lights on, paying rent, paying artists, those types of things. You'll see here that you have to be a nonprofit unit of government or school district that provides ongoing arts programs or services to the community. There has to be at least 1 year of consistent arts programming, and there needs to be at least $200,000 in their annual budget. Fiscal size. So there's another point of entry for the smaller groups that I'll be getting to here momentarily. But for this particular category, entry track for AOAP, it's more than 200,000. This is something that comes up every single year. So if you miss it 1 year, it's available annually. And something that's a little bit different with this is that we're looking at past performance in these grants, meaning you're not applying for a particular project or a particular initiative. You're telling us what you've done and what you've accomplished as an arts or creative organization or program in your community. So you're talking about what has happened. It's a little bit different than most. We're gonna jump into now that point of entry for smaller organizations. And that is something that is run through our program called the Pennsylvania Partners in the Arts. It's a decentralized model. You're going to see this map 3 times today. We actually just aligned all 3 of our partnerships to have the same footprint. So the exact same map is going to show up for 3 different initiatives. The folks on the call today, you're primarily in region 3 and 4. And so for the Pennsylvania Partners in the Arts program, for region 4, it's the Northeastern Educational Intermediate Unit 19. And for region 3, it's the Central Susquehanna Community Foundation. So those are our 2 local partners for region 3 and 4 for the PPA program. So Pennsylvania Partners in the Arts, that particular infrastructure does a lot of re-granting back out into the communities. One of the things that they do is that point of entry that I had mentioned just a bit ago, for organizations that are under that $200,000 fiscal size. Again, it's the same criteria as entry track that I just showed you. You have to be a nonprofit, unit of government, and so on. You have to have ongoing arts programming. It's not just a one-off project, it's for ongoing support and at least 1 year of consistent arts programming. Both the entry track and the program stream entry track have a 1-to-1 match, so a dollar for dollar match. The other thing that the Pennsylvania Partners in the Arts will be doing, both of these, by the way, are both coming soon. So we just had a council meeting yesterday, so this is very much hot off the press, that these two initiatives will be rolling out. The program stream entry track will be rolling out in the fall of 2021, and the Creative Entrepreneurs Accelerator Grant will be rolling out this summer. So if you do reach out to your local PPA partner, they might not have a lot of information about this program yet. It was just approved by our council yesterday, so we're gearing up. We're very excited about this new initiative called the Creative Entrepreneurs Accelerator Grant. This is really a program designed to support exactly that, creative entrepreneurs and artists that use their art and their creative work as their income. So they are a small business, whether a sole proprietor or maybe a 2 to 3 to 4 person staff. It's really going to be designed for the micro businesses, so 5 or so staff and under. And this program is designed to either help support a startup or to help accelerate or grow an existing creative business. So again, more information will be coming out on this program. I would say, later this spring, reaching out to your PPA partner if it's something you're interested in. I will say that the grants will be between $500 and $2,000. So they aren't huge grants, but they're non-matching, and they're really geared toward helping that creative entrepreneur take that next step or that first step, whichever it might be. We are going to be partnering with small business development centers and community financial institutions across the Commonwealth to help promote this program and to provide the value add of the resources that they have through the small business development centers and such. Okay, so same map again, except this time it's a little different because for Region 3, the partner there is the Bradford County Regional Art Council. And for Region 4, it is the same partner. It's the Northeastern Educational Intermediate Unit 19. And this is our Arts and Education Partnership. So most of what these Arts and Ed partners do is support and help plan, design, and evaluate arts and education residencies. So in a nutshell, an Arts and Ed residency is a period of time, usually 10 to 20 days in length, where an artist works with a group of students or participants in a project. The artist is facilitating the creative process. The students, the participants, they are the ones creating. These can happen in schools, certainly, but they can also happen in community settings. And I have a slide coming up right after this, so it'll show you some examples of school-based, like working with youth, but with a community component. The residencies, again, require a one-to-one match typically, and artists are paid usually between $200 and $250 a day. If you want more information about this opportunity, you're going to contact one of the arts and education partners that I mentioned, and they can tell you how to apply. Here's a couple examples. These are DCNR residencies that I thought might be of interest to you folks, as just to wrap your head around the concept of a residency, because sometimes it can be a little wonky without images. I'm a visual learner, so for me, it's certainly helpful to have images. These are two projects that we did along the Northwest River Trail, and we actually did it, talking about other partners on this call today, as part of a mini grant program. So we had an artist work with youth. The bottom photo that you see there is a school-based project that the artist worked with youth to learn about the history of the community. That mosaic mural stretches the entire retaining wall, and the history of that river town is shown through those mosaic tiles, created by the students, process facilitated by the artist, and installed by the artist. The top pictures are of some sculptural pieces that students worked with an artist and did some found object sculptures. And the bench that you see is a piece of a tree that had fallen over near the trail, and they turned it into a bench. This was with an after-school youth program. So these are just a couple examples of what a residency can look like, working with youth in both of these cases, but with a community engagement component. So preserving diverse cultures, that is a division that we have at the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts that really aims to engage and support BIPOC communities, and that's Black and Indigenous people of color. And the community-based engagement projects that you'll see there first is really about community-based arts project that is led by an artist. So it's an arts initiated project. And so that's what really the intention of this community-based engagement project program is about. It's a community artist that has an idea that they want to work with community members to bring to the region that they're in. And the letters of interest for these are typically due in the early part of the year. It's passed for this year, but again, it's something you can look for every year around the same time. Another program here is Strategies for Success. And this program is really organizational development. It's supporting BIPOC communities, nonprofit organizations within those communities with an arts focus, of course, to help them develop. So there's 3 levels. There's basic, which is someone just starting out or needs some basic help, to intermediate and advanced, with the idea that through that organizational development, we can help them become a strong business moving forward. There is still some time. It's March 15th is the deadline to apply. So not much time, but the deadline for this grant is coming up next week. For both of these initiatives, you can contact Dana Payne, and her information is right here on the screen. She is director of our DEI initiatives, Diverse Cultures and Heritage at PCA. We also have a folk and traditional arts program, and yes, it is the same map. So in this case, we do not have a partner yet in Region 3. That is to be determined. But in Region 4, we are currently working with the Everhart Museum. A big part of what the folk and traditional arts partners do is field work. They are finding and connecting with folk artists in the communities that they serve. One of the grant opportunities through or connected with the Folk Arts Partnership is apprenticeship grants. So apprenticeship grants are really a way for us to, through this initiative, support master artists working with apprentices on artistic or cultural traditions that have an ethnic, religious, occupational, or regional group emphasis. These are art forms, like on the very first slide in the presentation that I showed you when I first opened things up. These are art forms that are passed down. They're traditions. They are passed down through stories, through families, through practice, through observation. And so this is not like something that you learn in school and then want to pursue further. This is really something that's rooted in community and family and heritage. Each of these grants are usually up to about $4,000, and it's a 1-year grant, and that is really to support the partnership between a master artist and an apprentice. And if you'd like to find out more information, you can reach out to the Everhart Museum for those that are in Region 4. And if not, Dana Payne on the previous slide is our folk and traditional arts director at the PCA at the state level, and you can reach out to her as well. April 19th is the deadline for these apprenticeship grants, so there is still time to apply. Creative Catalyst grants. This is a relatively new initiative. This is our first year implementing it. It's a statewide grant opportunity that the proposals have to incorporate those all three of the pieces that you see on the screen. So it has to align with one or more of our goals as a state agency. And our 3 goals are to strengthen Pennsylvania communities through the arts, to increase access to lifelong learning through the arts, and to champion public awareness and appreciation of the arts in communities across our state. So it has to align with at least one of them. It also has to demonstrate the potential for statewide impact for the creative sector, and it has to connect with and address our overarching value of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and there needs to be a plan in place in order to do that. So an example of something I could give you here that we've provided funding for this year, conferences. If there's a state level or a national conference that is coming to your neck of the woods, we can provide support to that. At the state level, they're usually $5,000, and at the national level, $10,000. Another more community-based project that we funded is an organization that I believe is a heritage partner for DCNR, is Rivers of Steel. in the Pittsburgh neck of the woods. We just provided them with a grant to support a aerosol artist or graffiti artist project where they are working with a community in their region that is going to do 17 of these graffiti murals, but it's all about community engagement. The community is going to design them. They want to know, they want the community to help them determine what they want their community to reflect, things they want people to know about the community that they live in. It's going to be, like I said, I think 17, don't quote me on that, but a large number of these graffiti art murals. And what Rivers of Steel is going to do is they're going to provide a handbook, kind of best practices, toolkit on how other communities can do this, a step-by-step with documentation, how they evaluated it, and they're going to share and disseminate that across the Commonwealth. So that is something we were able to support. These are a rolling deadline. I'm the point person for these, so give me a call if it's something you're interested in. If you have an idea that you think meets these requirements, that has potential for statewide reach, the first step is to talk to me to make sure what you want to submit is eligible. And the next step is submitting an application. And then we take these to our council quarterly. We will only have one more for this fiscal year, 2021, one more meeting where we'll take recommendations to council. So if you're interested, let me know. These grants are calendar years, so your project can be from now and through the end of 2021. And finally, the Creative Communities Initiative. This is also a new program. We're in year 2, I believe, of the Creative Communities program, and it's about providing multi-year funding to community-driven, arts-based projects that will serve as a catalyst for economic development, community vitality, and connectedness. Creative placemaking or creative placekeeping is a term often associated with these types of projects. These are, as I said, multi-year funding, and it's, I believe, up to $25,000 a year for 4 years. So a total of possibly up to $100,000, but over the course of 4 years for these community-driven projects. I will say that right now, the letters of interest are open and they're due March 19th by 5 p.m. Sarah Merritt is Director of Creative Communities in our office, and there's her email. If it is something you are interested in, reach out to Sarah. I will say that we currently have projects in the communities that I've listed there, none of which are in your neck of the woods, which means that those types of projects would receive priority in this current round of applications coming up. So if you have a creative placemaking idea where you're using the arts as a way to engage communities and support economic development, this might be a great program for you. Okay, and that's it. I don't know if I stayed within my 15 minutes. I tried, but this is our website. All of the grants that I just talked about are on the website. My contact information, I apologize, is not here. I will submit that through the chat. Oh, we don't have a chat. I'll submit it through email, but please feel free to reach out. Happy to answer any questions that maybe I just glazed over today, and hopefully we can be of help to support the arts in your community. So thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. We will be putting up the contact information for our panelists at the end during the Q&A session as well. So, but they should be able to get everything you need. So next up, we have Jean Roof from the Endless Mountain Visitors Bureau to talk about their room tax grant program. Jean, take it away.
Coming at you very big right now. So I am the Executive Director of the Endless Mountain Visitors Bureau. We cover Sullivan, Susquehanna, and Wyoming counties. I am going to share my screen now. And I am going to talk about our room tax grants. The Visitors Bureaus are funded through room tax, which is money that is collected for overnight stays in our hotels. The money that is collected in our region, in each of our 3 counties, 30% of that money stays in that county to help support the room tax grants. Let me just click here and I'm should be, there we go. Important dates for these grants. Our grant application will go live on our website June 1st. And every year our grants are due on September 25th. So this year it will be September 25th. And it has to be postmarked or emailed to us by that date. Our award letters this year were a little bit late, but typically our award letters and contracts are mailed out in mid-December. Once we receive those back, our checks go out in January, and that money can then be spent. So our 2021 grants, the money is actually to be spent in 2022. After you spend that money, either at the end of the project or definitely by January 31st, you do have to do a final report for us. Just the general conditions for these grants. You do have to have a 25% match, but that can also be in kind. The grant funds are not used for religious expenses. They're not awarded for food, refreshment, travel, entertainment, operational expenses, but they can be used to match federal and state funds and are not considered private donations. So if you're receiving a grant from one of Kane's programs, you can definitely use this as a match to go against that. Public and promotional campaigns that use the grant have to include some wording. It just has to say funded in part by whatever county it was, room tax fund, and the Endless Mountain Visitors Bureau. Anybody who receives a grant should provide a direct link to our website. Grant categories, special events or exhibits. The event or exhibit should be open to the public. It should be something that's going to promote tourism in the county, make people want to come. It's great if it's advertised outside a 50-mile radius, and it should, what we always say is be putting heads in beds, getting people to come to our area and spend money. One of the things we gave money to or funding to this year in Wyoming County is exhibits. And the exhibits are for the Nicholson new train station. So they received money, and they're going to be buying exhibit cases, if you will, and also helping to provide some publicity once that does open. Marketing and promotional projects. Same thing, it has to demonstrate that it is aligned with tourism, go outside of a 50-mile radius, and hopefully put heads in beds. Things like this can be maps of the area. It can be promoting any type of event. So we do have nonprofits that, you know, their core doesn't really, core business doesn't really attract tourists, but then they may have a fundraiser. So when you do that fundraiser, and you know, one thing I'll take as an example will be the Blueberry Festival. The Blueberry Festival helps the library. Is the library going to actually bring people into the area? No, but the Blueberry Festival does. So their funding can go to help promote that festival. Historic preservation projects. This isn't used as much with funding, but it is there, and we have in the past used this to give out grants. It can be used to restore or preserve existing historical structures. Something that would be a draw to tourism. It can't be a capital improvement, and it can't be done on a private residence or a for-profit business. And then the last category is our wayfinding aids. Examples of this would be trail markers, PennDOT signs. You see those brown signs and blue signs to get people to different attractions, directional signage to location, interpretive signage. We work with the Heritage Region to put interpretive signs throughout our 3 counties. So this is something good that can be used, you know, after you receive one of your DCED or GCNR grants for trail development. We can then help you put trail markers there, do any type of interpretive signage for it. Example of these can be found down at the Holland Preserves in Wyoming County. Grant questions, the grant applications are very easy. What's the mission of your organization? Do a brief summary. What are the goals and objectives of the project? How is it going to bring tourism or generate overnight stays? Then it's a listing of all your staff, any type of past projects, anything in that application that's going to say that this can be a success for your organization, or this project has been something that's been done in the past. How will you evaluate and quantify the efforts that it did generate overnight stays or bring people? At the end, in your final report, we love to see the figures. If you're taking attendance numbers, any type of statistics, if it's for a website, how have your web numbers come up, that can all be included in your final report. And then don't forget also that you do have to identify what your cash or in-kind match will be. Supporting documentations. We need a copy of your annual budget. And what I always say is please indicate any plans for large reserves of income. You know, you look at things like our fairs. You know, I know at the Hartford Fair, they were saving money to replace some of the bandstand. You don't want somebody to take a look at this application and say, wow, they don't really need money because they have this big pot of money sitting there. So that's really important, that any, you know, large reserves, or if you need that large reserve to start up for next year, make sure that you're indicating that in your grant application. We need an audited financial statement or a copy of your IRS 990 form. We don't need the entire form, just the important pages that really list your income and deductions. And then the project, what the budget is for the project for the current year. A copy of your 501c6 or any 501c3 certification, a list of your board of directors. If it is for something to do with marketing, we would need to for you to include your marketing plan with that. Really, you know, with that, be very specific. Really talk about your social media packages that you're going to be putting together with lodging in the area or any other type of marketing initiative. Final reports. Final reports are due, as I said, at the end of the project, or the deadline for those is January 31st. In that, you need to include copies of promotional materials. If you did a rack card, brochure, posters, if you did something like a trail sign, send us a picture of one of the signs. And then we need copies of the invoices with the check number and date paid, and then just the brief narrative, include attendance numbers, websites, social media, zip codes, things like that. There's my contact information, but what I do want to say is that, you know, I've been working here for the Visitors Bureau for 14 years. Over those 14 years, we have given out over $1 million in these grants. Grants can range anywhere from, you know, we had one grant awarded this year for $490. I think the largest amount in grants for one specific grant recipient this year was $12,500. Your organization can put in more than one grant. We have, you know, it really should be based on the project. If you're an organization such as the Dietrich Theater, they're doing, you know, film festivals. They're doing the River Day Festival. This year they got awarded money to revamp their website. So if you have any questions about what qualifies under the room tax grant program, please reach out to me. More than happy to help you with that. I'm more than happy to sit down with you when you're going through the grant application, if you have any questions or need any type of assistance. So now I'm going to pass it back to Kane, and I'll be here for questions at the end. Thank you.
Good, because you did get a question during that. So next, we're going to have Robin Cummings from the Bradford County Tourism Promotion Agency, and she's going to be talking about their room tax program for Bradford County.
Good morning. Thank you, Kane, for having me. I don't have a presentation PowerPoint that I'm going to share because I like following Jean of the Endless Mountains Visitors Bureau, because with Bradford County, our room tax grants are funded the same way. And many of the requirements that are needed for an application are the same through the Endless Mountains Visitors Bureau. Big difference is location of where you are. So, and some of the dates as well. But I think one of the things that I'll touch on as well with our grant program is that with any grants, generally it's a supplement to your budget. The goal is that whether you received your full budget amount or any amount that's less than, or for some reason there was a part missing and the application got declined, was that your event and your organizations should still be able to move forward with the plans ahead. A grant is really a supplement to what you're already hoping and planning to do. So we want to make sure, that when you're sending in all of your documents, sometimes people say, well, we don't have a budget prepared because we don't know what funding we're getting. We need to see what the plan is moving forward, regardless of if you get the funding or not. So again, 30% of the room tax for Bradford County also is withheld. And the goal and for any of our visitors bureaus is to make sure that we can promote the great things that are happening in our organizations within our county and our events, so that we have things to promote. We're well aware that we need those dollars that we collect to go back out to our organizations to keep your events going, so that we have things to promote. So it's a nice partnership circle that we have going here. And 30% is a substantial amount. A lot of visitors bureaus don't even offer grants any longer. So the fact that both the Endless Mountains Visitors Bureau and the Bradford County Tourism Promotion Agency still has that, we are very proud of that, and that it's a substantial percentage of the revenue that comes in. So who can apply? Any 501c3 or C6 organization or branch of local or county government within the county is eligible to apply. And like Jean had mentioned, an event or exhibit, marketing, promotional project, or wayfinding aids tend to be the items or the grants that we receive the most requests for. And again, a lot of those things that are required in a room tax grant with the Endless Mountains Visitors Bureau that Jean went through are the same with the Tourism Promotion Agency here in Bradford County. I will say that some things are a bit more important on our end than not. What we have found when working with our applicants is what our review committee sees versus what an auditor cares about. So when we receive the applications in, our grants are reviewed by a 5-member committee of the Tourism Promotion Agency's board. And so when they get their application, the first things that they're looking for are, do we have everything that we can actually review the application? Is the 501c3 or C6 letter attached? Do we have their audited financials? Do we have their proof of 25% match, which is law? So if that 25% match is not included lawfully, we're unaware if you have that or not, and whether we can move forward. The goal of the review committee is always to give the benefit of the doubt to the organization. We have this money, we know that you need it. So our goal is to make sure that we can move through what is really legal and necessary, but to really get to the meat of the project. Auditors, on the other hand, don't care what the meat of the project is. They want to make sure that the agency is using those funds very responsibly, and that we are giving them to bona fide nonprofit organizations and legal entities. So just make sure that you kind of have that in the back of your mind. There is a checklist in our applications, both with the Endless Mountains Visitors Bureau as well as the Tourism Promotion Agency. So don't submit an incomplete application. Make sure you have a little checklist there that you can complete and make sure everything's there. And it's always great to have another set of eyes on any applications that you may be turning in. Our application cycle, it is an annual grant. It is a non-rolling grant. Our cycle opens the Tuesday after Labor Day. So this year it will be September 7th. It is open for 6 weeks and will close October 15th. Like most grants, the goal is to not procrastinate on them. You want to make sure that they are complete and they're in a proper time, very timely in a proper time frame. So within that 6 week period, I'm not a voting member of the committee, so I'm able to answer any questions. And although I can't write the grant for you, I certainly can review it and kind of give a perspective on what may still be needed or if anything should be elaborated on to help with the committee make their decision a bit easier and a bit more clearly. So they do need to be delivered either in hand or postmarked by that date. There is no system in Bradford County as of yet to submit them electronically. There are line items within the application of what can be funded and what cannot be funded. Please know again, when reviewing those applications, if there's a piece in there of your application of a portion of your grant that cannot be funded, we'll simply remove that piece and continue on with the application provided everything is there. And that is all line item again in the application overview. One question that we do get frequently is, now that it is law for the past couple years, is what is the difference between a cash or an in-kind donation? Cash kind of speaks for itself. It's monies that maybe an organization, a business, or an individual has contributed to your event. In-kind is where it may get a little interesting, where we get more questions. If 25% of your grant application you have to show as being a cash or in-kind match, we know many organizations operate off of volunteers. So what you would want to identify as being an in-kind donation would be something that a cost that you would not otherwise normally have to pay for. For instance, if you're utilizing a legal services or a contractor, and whatever that what they normally would have charged you for the project, if they happen to donate some of that cost off the top of what they normally would have charged, that is what you would consider to be your in-kind donation. And I'll just provide a few tips for what we see of writing a great grant application. One is start your application early. It is very interesting when we sit down with our grant committee. You can tell right off the bat which organizations have really taken the time to prepare a great application and those that have kind of procrastinated through. As Jean said, the applications are very easy. So our goal is to not make them difficult. Our goal is to give you the money. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help facilitate that process for you. We just want you to do the same back, is to make sure that everything is there, that it's complete, and that you start it early. No one likes to be rushed, especially when your organization is depending on that money to move things forward. And the second part, just follow the instructions. If it says we want last year's audited financials, last year's does not mean the most recent. It means last year's. So follow the instruction that's right in place. If it says we need 5 unbound copies, please submit 5 unbound copies. So just make sure that you are just following the instructions that are provided, and use the checklist to make sure everything is complete. The other thing I would say is be aware of the deadline. I've come back to the office the day after the deadline and found applications wedged in my door. Well, I didn't leave until after the deadline had passed, so I know that they weren't submitted on time. And unfortunately, to make sure that there's a level playing field, we have to not be able to, we can't review that application. It is open for 6 weeks, so please make sure that that is turned in on time and that they're delivered on time. So just be aware of that deadline. Make arrangements to drop off your application if you feel more comfortable handing it to someone in person. And I would say also, these grants are competitive grants. This is your opportunity to brag about your organization. The funds are limited. because it is based off of an anticipated revenue. So last year, the Tourism Promotion Agency gave out a little over $100,000, but there was $300,000 requested. So this is your opportunity to really brag about your organization because there are limited funds. So make it easy. And like Jean said, make a connection. You know that we're funded by the occupancy tax from the hotels. Make a connection as to how you're going to utilize a partnership with a hotel, a partnership with another organization, or you know, how you're going to bring people to our area. The way our economies grow is it's great to share and support local businesses, but the way our economies grow is outside dollars coming in. So we want to make sure that there's that connection in your grant application that can be shared. And I would say the final thing is ask questions and seek help. If you're unsure how to write a grant, I think as soon as someone says they hear the word grant, they kind of freak out a little bit. Please don't. Know that we are here and available to answer questions that you have and to seek help. I know you're going to hear from Ethan Sexton coming up soon. There are organizations within our county that are happy to assist you for free. And so it's not a comfortable thing to do. Sometimes people don't have time to write a grant application or they're not comfortable doing so. Please do not let that discourage you from applying for those dollars that are available to you. I will say we will also make those applications and the overview of the room tax grant applications available on the visitbradfordcounty.com website as we draw closer to that time in September. I also do a lot of Facebook Lives and we'll continue to do that too as we get closer into September to talk about the room tax grants as well as questions that you may have. So just stay tuned to what is coming in the fall from Bradford County Tourism Promotion Agency regarding the room tax grants. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to take questions at the end as well. Thank you, Kane.
Thanks, Robin, appreciate it. Next up, we have Karen Arnold from the PHMC, who will be assisted by Brian Van Sweden. So Karen, if you want to take it away, and then if Brian needs to fill in any gaps, we can put him up.
Very good. Thank you so much for having me today. I am with, as we just heard, the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission, and I'm going to talk today about our more robust grant program, which is the Keystone Historic Preservation Grant Program. If you're not familiar with the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission, we are actually the official history agency of the Commonwealth. You might be more familiar with some of our other bureaus, which include the State Archives, the State Museum, our regional history centers and locations, and also, of course, one of the more popular programs of the agency, which is the Historical Marker Program. But we also have a small little bureau called the State Historic Preservation Office, and our grant program is housed within that bureau. Our Keystone Grant Program is very similar to some of the other programs you've heard about today, but this is the actual grant program that deals with capital improvements at historic sites throughout the Commonwealth. We do use some of the allocation for our own capital improvements at our PHMC-owned sites, but the public grant program is very popular, and we've been in existence for, although our masthead says 25 years here, we're embarking in our 27th year. Through that time period, we've been able to provide 860 public grants, which total over $42 million, which is quite impressive. You might be familiar with the Keystone Grant Program from projects that are funded through DCNR and some of their partners as well. And if you want to know a little bit more about some of the efforts that's funded throughout the whole program, you can do so by visiting the keystonefund.org website. But our allocation, of course, this comes from the Keystone Recreation Park and Conservation Fund. It's that additional revenue stream that's sold with real estate transactions throughout the Commonwealth. And this year's application, which just closed last week, but we're hopeful that it will be around for next year. So this is a great opportunity for you to start planning for those types of projects. Provided public grants in just over $2 million. Our requests were quite robust. We had requests of over $4 million. So you can imagine that we fund as well as some of the other programs that competitively we're only able to support about 40% of the applications that we receive. Our program provides 2 categories of support. Obviously, the one that most people are familiar with are the construction category projects. And this is actual bricks and mortar dollars that are used for, historic house museums, county courthouses, and the similar types of buildings that allow for appropriate preservation, restoration, and rehabilitation activities. In addition to the construction category grants, we do allow for pre-development or planning grant programs. Obviously, what we often see are those projects that are developing for a future construction project, but we also see a lot of key historic preservation grant activities, either design guidelines in a historic district, nominating properties to the National Register of Historic Places, or other very key components that can help your community deal with preservation needs or managing the historic resources that they have in their communities. Of course, like all of the other programs you've heard about this morning, we do have a series of eligibility requirements. Obviously, unfortunately, properties that are owned or associated with the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission are not eligible for funding. Neither are state or federally operated properties, for-profit organizations, or individuals. But that doesn't exclude a lot of organizations from tapping into this funding opportunity. Obviously, for the most part, our grants are directed to nonprofit organizations, usually 501c3 organizations recognized by the Internal Revenue Service, but other public agencies that own and support a publicly accessible historic property. So our normal applicants, of course, are colleges and universities, conservancies, historic preservation organizations and historical societies, museums and religious institutions that are able to make the case that they're historically or architecturally significant, and are many local government partners who are stewards of important historic buildings throughout the region. I will admit that the Endless Mountains Heritage Region is not one of our more active areas to receive applications. We've had a lot in both Bradford and Susquehanna County, but none from Wyoming and Sullivan County in recent years. So we certainly would like to change that trend. There's some great historic resources there.
We'll keep pushing them.
Thank you, please do. As part of our additional eligibility requirements, nonprofit organizations must have been in existence for 5 years before making an application. We do see some applicants that have not reached that milestone, but they're able to still apply, but they'll work with a fiscal sponsor who would actually be the actual applicant for our grant program. The intent of the grant program throughout anything is really to allow the public to enjoy and appreciate historic buildings. So we do have a public visitation requirement, accessibility requirement for our funded programs or projects. The general rule of thumb is that they're open for about 100 days per year. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that the building has to be currently open at that time. And 100 days of years is basically a Saturday or Sunday throughout the year. Or if you're a project or a property that has a more robust late spring through early fall visitation, maybe you have a little bit more robust visitation policy at that point. But we do see applications that are not currently open, mainly because a lot of the properties that you can imagine have been abandoned or vacant for a number of years and need substantial capital improvements to make them safe. And that's certainly the intent of the grant program. So we like to see applicants who will be able to show and demonstrate that with the influx of our grant funding that might be able to allow public visitation at that property. Also, all properties and projects that are affected by or receive Keystone funding have to somehow be associated with the National Register of Historic Places. If you're not familiar with that designation, this is actually a program that was developed in the 1960s that recognize and identify properties that are historically important and worthy of preservation. We see this a lot in projects with both federal and state funding to make sure that they're sympathetic to the historic buildings, but we've also used this as a catalyst to identify where our grant funding should go as well. Properties can be listed either individually or part of a historic district. There's a fair number within the northern part of Pennsylvania that are collections of historic buildings. Towanda has a great historic district as well as Montrose. And we do keep a record of it. The State Historic Preservation Office is mandated to sort of be able to identify those properties that have been eligible and listed in the register. Just because something currently is not eligible or listed doesn't mean that it's not historically important. It's most likely that no one has taken the opportunity to share that information with us and request a determination of eligibility. Now, I mentioned PA Share very quickly there, but we are very proud to announce that we've launched a new program just in February 22nd about consultation and about historic properties with our office, and that's also been will be the key program of how you relate with us on identifying and researching whether or not a property is listed in or eligible for listing in the National Register. So I wanted to throw that out there. You can learn much more about it on our website. I don't want to take too much time talking about it, but it's really quite exciting for us, and we're very pleased about this new initiative of our Bureau. Now everyone wants to know what the dollar amounts are. So in the planning category, they're much smaller. Requests can be made from $5,000 to $25,000, and our capital grants, or those in the construction project category, are $5,000 to $100,000. Much like the other programs you've heard about today, they do require a 50-50 dollar for dollar match, and unfortunately not in-kind matches. So this is actual cash. The source of match is can be from your organizational funding, other state or federal grants, capital campaigns that are about to be undertaken by the organization. You don't necessarily need to have your cash match in hand at the time of the application, but you do have an opportunity in the application itself to articulate your fundraising plan of where the source of the cash match is. That cash match is very important because our grant program is our reimbursable grants. These are not direct awards. We like to be a partner in as you are working through your project to make sure that it's appropriate and that you're following the appropriate standards for rehabilitation or so with your construction project. So as we evaluate that, we release funds throughout the course of the project rather than upfront. So to learn a little bit more about the construction project, which is actually the more important or popular project component of our program, again, the building that is receiving support has to be either listed in or eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. It needs to be publicly accessible. And again, the grant awards can be $5,000 to $100,000, which of course means that your project is $10,000 or above. So it's half of what your full total project costs. This is state funding, so prevailing wage provisions are a requirement, which you'll often see may increase the cost of your labor. So as you're considering a project, keep that in mind. And these run the gamut of fine restoration of historic interiors, masonry projects, roof replacements. It really is, if you're hiring a contractor to make a repair to a historic building, this is the grant program that could be of great assistance to you. We do, of course, see an awful lot of historic museums that do restoration and fine quality work, but we also have been able to use this program to leverage community centers that do not do a public interpretation at the site, but certainly want to make sure that their historic building is appropriately repaired. This is a great opportunity for funding that type of project. Those planning grant that I keep talking about, it does use a slightly different application. And again, because it's similar to the construction program, it does use requirement that it's associated with a building that is listed or eligible for listing in the National Register. These are smaller, but they do also require a 50-50 cash match. And the type of projects that we see coming through this category are much like the Wyalusing Valley Museum, which was a feasibility study and sort of a architectural plan of how to redesign and improve their historic building. So that's certainly something that we see a lot, funding for an architect to come in to plan the restoration or future rehabilitation of the building. These are great components to plan a later construction application in our program that makes your application much more competitive for that funding. But we also see applications that can help with National Register nomination, either for a full district in a community, or if you've got, you're not even to that step first, but you want to just identify what historic buildings might be in your community, you can come through this category to complete something, let's call it a cultural resource inventory that might be able to walk your streets, identify what buildings might meet National Register criteria as well. It really is a great tool that we've seen to help further in municipalities of what their opportunities might be for preservation and maintaining of their community character. As the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission, our grant program is much like DCNR's SCORP plan. We'd have our own plan, which is the Pennsylvania Statewide Historic Preservation Plan, which is in effect till 2023. And all of our funding somehow have to be tied to the goals and objections of our statewide plan. We also like projects that are very visible and that are primarily preservation or restoration activities. So for example, if you're looking to do a project that might be replacing the windows that are historic and very much important to a historic building, we might not be as attracted to that project unless, on contrast, if you were instead proposing to repair those historic windows. We also like buildings and projects that have a wide public support and benefit. So those community centers that are well used within a community, or if you're a religious property that operate public concert series, food pantry, or those types of projects, they certainly help demonstrate that your project is well loved and needed in the community, and those programs wouldn't be in place if you weren't able to continue to maintain your property. I certainly share with you our preservation plan. It's a great, cool tool. It's not meant just to be our plan for the Historical and Museum Commission. It's really the map for all preservation activities throughout the Commonwealth. We took great strides to write this time as an opportunity for all communities and all Pennsylvanians to be able to implement some of the goals within that plan. So I certainly encourage you to take a minute to read through it. It's also, you can find it on our website too. As I said, we just missed the grant deadline for fiscal year 2020 to 2021. Our application deadline was March the 1st. Usually our project period, much like the other programs you heard about this year, your grant funding and your match may not start until we have a fully executed grant contract, which is usually October after the most recent deadline. So if you're planning a project for next year, keep that in mind, that you wouldn't be able to start your grant project until September or October, but you do have a full 24 months to implement that project, which is a great opportunity. We share DCED's grant portal, so our applications are also made in the single application for assistance. You'll see some differences in the grant program and application itself. It's customized to our grant program, so and you'll see most of those new questions in the program addendum as well. We do have a great opportunity to learn more about the grant program and its facets and how it's used. We certainly encourage you to take a look at our website. We do have a number of webinars that are posted on our YouTube channel. I am always accessible to talk about potential projects, as is my colleague, Brian Van Sweden. I certainly am hopeful that our program will be available to you next fiscal year. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about projects that might be able to be applied for in our next round. We usually open the single application for assistance in our grant program in December. So you'll have a full 90 days to complete your grant program in advance of the March 1st deadline. That's all I have prepared for this morning. I'm going to turn it back to Kane, who will introduce Ethan then. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Karen. Brian, did you want to say anything real quick? Or did she cover all the bases?
She did just fine. Thanks.
All right, very good.
I'll be here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. You guys got a few, so stay tuned. Ethan, you're up next from Northern Tier Regional Planning and Development.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be a little bit shorter and debatably sweeter than everyone else, I guess. So I don't have a presentation or anything. And I think I said the same thing when we did this last year. It's primarily because I don't have any money to give to you. So if you're wondering what I'm doing here, I'm about to tell you. So at Northern Tiers, although we don't have programs like we heard from everybody who's already spoken ahead of me, what we do offer is free grant writing assistance. So I want to key in on that word assistance, all right? So what we do is we help you with any project that you may have. We don't do it for you, and I want to make that clear. So I can't, I'll use DCNR as an example because, you know, I'm working on a couple right now, grants right now. I can't do the grant for you because I don't know all the information. I need your help getting that information, right? So we work together in a partnership, but you know, what we offer is the free grant writing assistance for all of these programs that were mentioned today, you know, is something we can help on. We have the relationships with the different various agencies. I see Kate, you made me full screen and my son is staring at me over my shoulder, I just noticed. So he's in the frame here. Sorry, I got distracted. But yeah, we have the relationships with all of these agencies that have spoken today. We know the people. So even if it's something, you know, you have an idea for a project and you're not sure where you want to go with it, where the funding might be a possibility to come from, you know, that's something we can help you figure out. And then once we identify the funding source, you know, we can really dig in and work with the agencies with you to determine the fit and then do the actual application itself. So as I said, all of that is free of charge, which is obviously a nice price point, right? We can all do free. But yeah, I do want to stress that, you know, we can't just take the ball and run with it. It's still your project. So we work, you know, with you hand in hand throughout the thing. But yeah, we're definitely here to help you with that free of charge, like I mentioned. So pretty much just wanted to bring that up and make sure everybody was aware of it. And then Kane had asked me just to talk a little bit about the COVID-19 Hospitality Industry Recovery Program, or the CHIRP. So I am not a huge expert on this, but I do want to bring it up because Northern Tier is going to be administering the grant funding for, I just want to make sure I get this right, for Sullivan and Wyoming County. Sorry, just want to make sure I had the right two counties as we have 5. So I just want to read a little bit about that. This comes straight from a one-pager, and if you don't catch it all, we did put a post on our Facebook page, the Northern Tier Facebook page, that has all this information as well. So Sullivan County is going to be receiving about $68,000. Wyoming County will be receiving approximately $303,000 from this CHIRP program. The grants will be awarded in $5,000 increments. And Northern Tier will begin accepting applications on March 15th. So that's Monday. I just talked to a couple of people this morning here at the office, and they said that the application should be online possibly by the end of today, but definitely by Monday. So you can go to our website for that. And I just wanted to read off a couple of the eligibility things that folks will need to hit. So businesses will be considered eligible if they have a NAICS designation within the accommodation or food services subsectors, and where accommodations, food, or drink is served to or provided for the public. The business must have fewer than 300 full-time employees, a maximum tangible net worth not more than $15 million. It needed to be in operation on February 15th and also needs to remain in operation and does not intend to permanently close operations within a year of the date of their application. COVID-19 had an adverse economic impact on the eligible applicant, which makes the grant request necessary. Have not received a loan or grant issued under the authority of the Commonwealth or the Commonwealth's political subdivisions or by the federal government. Were subject to closure by the governor's disaster declaration or can demonstrate one of the following: a reduction in gross receipts of 50% or more beginning March 31st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. And if the eligible applicant was not in operation during the entire comparison period, but was in operation on February 15th, 2020, a monthly average reduction in gross receipts of 50% or more for the period from March 31st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. So again, Northern Tier is administering that funding, the applications for that, the CHIRP funding for Sullivan and Wyoming counties. If you're listening to this and you are in Bradford and Susquehanna County, your grant administration will be done by the Central Bradford Progress Authority, so you will want to reach out to them. I'm not 100% sure what their process with this is, since I don't work for them. But so if you are in those two counties, you can reach out to them and they'll get you that information, no problem. And Kane, that's pretty much all I had, man. I just wanted to go over the resources we provide and then just a little bit about the CHIRP funding there. So
that's excellent. That's excellent. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And that grant writing assistance I know is very much appreciated. And there was a question, I'll just get it to you real quick, and I'm pretty sure I know it already. You have helped with USDA grants as well.
We have, yes.
Yes.
So
Right.
USDA aren't on the panel today, but yes, we have worked with USDA as well. So if you have interest in any of their grants or their low interest loans, that's something we can also help out.
Good. I didn't put out false information. All right. Thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate it. All right. So next is going to be me. Sorry to put you through this again, but we are going to be talking about EMHR's partnership or mini grants program. So I am going to bring that up and start the slideshow. All right. So this year we are going to be offering once again our 2021 partnership mini grants program. We are really excited about this year. We have more funding available than in previous years. So basically, I wanted to start off by just letting people know what is the EMHR. You may be new to this, you may not have heard of our organization. You may be here for the other organizations and not me. So we were established in 1998 as a nonprofit membership-based organization with the mission to maintain and enhance the unique rural character and culture of the Endless Mountains. We're one of 12 heritage areas in Pennsylvania designated by the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. You heard from Christine before, who is our regional manager. And we serve a 2,850 square mile area encompassing Bradford, Sullivan, Susquehanna, and Wyoming counties. Through our DCNR's financial support and this mini grants program, we've been able to bring over $2.5 million in state funding into the region, which was matched by another $2.5 million from those who receive our grants. These projects that they perform relate to historic preservation, outdoor recreation development, educational programming, ag support initiatives, scenic enhancements, and heritage tourism promotion. So this year we have just shy of $65,000 available. It's about $5,000 more than last year and $10,000 more than the year before that. So we have been working our way up. Even despite the pandemic, we were able to get the highest grant amount we've ever gotten from DCNR last year. So we're really proud of that application and all the work everyone did. And we are really thankful to the state for being able to get that to us. Grant requests must be between $1,000 and $10,000. And they do require a full match, $1 to dollar. So, if you apply for a $10,000 grant, you will have to show that in either a cash match, an in-kind match, or a combination of both. Our mini grant guidelines: all applicants must be paying members of the EMHR. Basically, you can go onto our website and fill out the form. We are starting something here soon where we will be doing free membership. That is something the Endless Mountain Visitors Bureau has also transitioned to in light of COVID. This just makes it easier on people in terms of, those who still want to be involved in their community, but don't really have that additional income right now to, be a member of every organization under the sun. But if you are going to be a grantee or plan to apply for one of our grants, we do ask that you still be a paying member. If you're a nonprofit organization or volunteer-based group, it's very minimal fee. Businesses are pretty minimal as well. It all depends on your number of employees and that sort of thing. So you can go on our website and check out that membership sheet. Each applicant is limited to submitting 2 grant applications, and contracts will begin June 1st of this year and should be completed by August 31st of next year. We do offer extensions, but we hope that 12-month period is enough for everybody. Well, actually 14-month period. We do like to get them done within a year time frame because we do have to close out our DC and our grants within a 3-year period. So we try to get these done as soon as possible. That way we can close them out and move on to the next round. Eligible mini grant applicants are 501c3 nonprofits like we are, municipalities and municipal agencies, public education institutions, our school districts in the area, and must be based within our 4-county region: Bradford, Susquehanna, Sullivan, and Wyoming, once again. Suitable projects, ones we've funded in the past, deal with historic preservation, outdoor recreation development. We've done quite a few trail projects, special purpose studies for trail projects and other things related to outdoor recreation, public engagement and educational programming, environmental conservation. We have done building rehabilitation projects. This normally pertains to museums and historical societies that may need some work done. We also, in terms of an organization that maybe has a historic structure, that one that serves the public, we may help out with that as well. We also do a lot of interpretive and wayfinding signage, which you'll see all along our trails, the North Branch Water Trail, which we serve as the Water Trail Management Organization for. So we have wayfinding signage and interpretive signage all over the 4 counties. You'll often see our little logo there on them. Suitable projects, they should all further our mission and goals outlined in our management action plan, which we are in the process of updating right now, but we still kind of base it off the ones from 2017 and 2016. You can find all of our grant forms right there at that web address. Just go to our website and hit the grants drop down. The mission obviously should further that, and our goals are all right there on our application cover page. Basically in the application, we'll be asking you to essentially see how your proposed projects furthers these goals. Eligible reimbursement costs are contracted professional services, in-house professional costs, what you do for the project, other project cash costs, and only costs accrued within the grant agreement period. So basically, we can't do anything retroactively. You can't apply for something that you've already done. It has to be something you're going to continue doing once you get the funding. Ineligible expenditures, expenses prior to the date of the signed agreement, as I just said. Grants, scholarships, fellowships given to third parties. We're obviously running a grant program, so we're not trying to fund someone else's grant program. We want projects that are going to help us accomplish our mission and goals. Indirect costs, general operations of overhead not associated with the project. Award items, free giveaways and promotional materials, and equipment. Now, this is where it kind of gets confusing. Now, we do allow eligible forms of match. You can see there at the bottom, equipment use. So you may be wondering why I just said equipment isn't eligible. So essentially, your organization can't buy a tractor for the organization. But if you were having a project done that required some excavation, and there were a professional contractor who donated that service of that machine to help you with your project, that is something you can include. But for us to actually just help you purchase a piece of equipment for your organization is something we can't do. So there's the difference there. But other eligible forms of match are additional cash costs, contracted and professional services, volunteer and in-house professional services. The volunteer rate is available on our website as well. That's basically done at the national level and instituted across all the states, and donated professional services. The application form, be sure to explain how your project furthers or aligns with the EMHR's mission and goals. I can't stress that enough. I know I've talked about it several times now, but it is a very important part of your application. Please cite deliverables or final products from your project, and they should be succinct and measurable. There's an example right there. You know, say you produce 3 interpretive signs that need to be installed at this particular site, or 2 educational workshops held with 15 attendees each. You know, you're basically just showing us what your project will produce at the very end. The application form also, you'll want to list partners committing any type of match. These commitment letters are important. It shows us that you have partners signed on to the project and are willing to help you out with it. Also, letters of support are very important. There is a question about that that we'll answer here at the end. Show your project can be completed prior to that deadline. That's a big part of it. In the past, we have had to offer extensions because, you know, we had summers where we were completely flooded out and people really weren't allowed to do many construction projects. COVID obviously was an unforeseen circumstance where we did have a couple of instances where people had to, you know, ask for additional time, but we definitely want to see that in your application that you can get your project done by that deadline, so we can continue moving on with our other programs. Be as specific as possible in the budget section. We don't require a massive, you know, really in-depth budget, but we definitely want it to be something that, you know, conveys what you have in terms of funding, what you'll be getting, and, you know, how you'll get your project finished. Our grant review committee, which will meet in May, they are looking for well thought out and adequately explained projects. Like I said, projects completed within that time frame of the project, or incorporates partner collaboration. The more partners you have, the better it looks. Applicant experience, you know, if you've gotten grants from us or the PHMC or room tax grants in the past, it shows you're able to, you know, get a good project going, get it finished on time, and get everything closed out. So your experience with, you know, past organizations, and particularly ours, you know, really pushes your application to the top of the pile. Realistic budget amounts, you know, your match is identified and secured, and supports and advances the EMHR priorities. Our mini grants timeline this year, we will begin accepting applications Monday, March 22nd. So it's going to be a couple weeks away before we start accepting applications, but that doesn't mean you can't start them now. Get on our website and get the forms ready. And, you know, hopefully you have a project in mind, something that you can, you know, put forward. Applications are going to be due by 4 p.m. on Friday, April 23rd. You can submit them electronically to our email, and we will send you a confirmation that we've received it. Or you can deliver them right here to our office at 602 Main Street in Towanda. We're directly across from the Keystone Theater. Awardees will be notified by letter or email no later than Monday, May 24th. That's when we'll let you know, what you've received and when to proceed with your project. May 27th, we'll try to announce it publicly. That is a tentative date. Sometimes some things happen, but we do want contracts starting June 1st. That is our ultimate goal. That way the summer season will be here at that point, and you guys can get your project started, as many of our projects kind of take place outdoors. So it's good to start in the summertime. Get your contractors lined up now, and, you know, have everything ready to go. That way, once we issue that contract, you're good to go. So questions, you can direct them to my email or my administrative assistant, Vanessa Billing-Sealer. The emails are right there. I will also be just about to put up some contact information for all our speakers today. That way you can write them down and touch base with us in case you have any additional questions following the Q&A, or if you maybe wanted some additional information from the presentations that they put up on the screen. So I am going to stop share. And I am going to put up, see if we can do that. I want to make sure you guys get the contact information. So I'm going to put it right there. Hopefully you can still see that. And I have to read some Q&A questions. We are going to start our Q&A period now that we're all finished up. And the first one will be for Christine. You had mentioned that you helped with feasibility studies with DCNR funding. Do engineering plans count, specifically regarding a park project with a splash pad?
So the feasibility studies are normally for if you're considering rehabbing a pool, or constructing a new pool, or developing a new indoor facility. Normally with a splash pad, we don't require that feasibility study, but what you're saying, the engineering plans, the design plans would be part of the grant application. There's not like a separate, we don't have a separate design or engineering plan for our grant program. So some of the planning and development of the splash pad would be done as part of the grant application. There's a certain percentage that you're allowed of your total ask to go towards planning and development and design. Okay. And I think that's Val from up in Susquehanna County. She can reach out to me to discuss further.
Very good. Next question was for Paul McNoskey. Paul, are you still with us? I know you had another meeting you had to get to.
Yep, no, I'm here.
All right, very good. So Josh Stoll with Nicholson Heritage Association asked kind of a general question. I guess this could be for anybody, but he sent this during your presentation. Do letters of support from local community businesses, local government, and other organizations have a significant impact as applications are reviewed, and letters from state and federal elected officials?
Thanks, Josh, for that question. They do, and on multiple levels, and it sometimes is program specific. So it never hurts to get that letter of support for from all levels in your community, federal and state legislators. They always show that there is community support behind a project. They help show that. And then when you're talking about the Commonwealth Financing Authority specifically, because that is driven by the four caucuses, it will show that there is legislative support for the project, and that's important when they're making those determinations. So as a general rule, it always is helpful to build a community consensus, and then obviously more specific for the CFA programs.
Okay, very good, thank you. And also kind of a general question. You had cited some other grant requests that the DCED had awarded. What were some examples of best cases, and what made those grant requests stand out among all the rest? I know that's kind of a vague, widespread question. You know, obviously your grant review committee would be, you know, looking for some specific things that, you know, adhere to all the categories and criteria.
Yes. I think this is something I tried to highlight through a little bit. It's hard because of the diversity in our programs. It makes it difficult for each specific program. But something I did mention early on was the importance of understanding the guidelines for the program. The guidelines are going to dictate specifically what each program requirement is. And a lot of times within the guidelines themselves, they're really prodding you to specific information related to your project. And that can mean community support. It can mean specific targeted efforts that you're doing, but and certain things that the reviewer needs to see. I guess the best way to explain it is this: consider who's reviewing these applications. They're generally somebody who is in Harrisburg. They may be reviewing dozens of applications. So it's important for you to really express and give them a clear understanding of what this project is, so they can understand how it impacts. So generally the specifics come from the guidelines, but you really want to paint a picture that is easily comprehended by somebody who's seeing a lot of applications. So the one thing that I generally recommend is try and avoid the fluff. A lot of people want to just build the application to, you know, make things sound good, but they're not relevant to the overall importance of the project itself. Try to be a little bit more targeted in the impact and address the specific questions that are coming from the guidelines. And that also leads to the importance of contacting certainly for programs through DCD, having that contact with us beforehand, because a lot of times I can guide you through that process. And a lot of the grant writers that you'll deal with will have some understanding of projects that they consistently apply for, so they'll help as well. But you can always reach out to me, or if you're in a different region, somebody in my position that can help.
If I could chime in there to what, and just stress what Paul has just said, even with our DCNR applications, it is really important to contact your regional advisor. Our questions are a little bit different than the DCD single application for assistance. You are scored on how you answer those questions, but we want you to be as succinct and clear as possible. We do provide a lot of, there's question marks after each question we're asking you to give you hints and take you to other information to help you answer those questions. So if you have issues, those question marks are really helpful. And again, reaching back out to us to make sure we're aware of your project, because we will score with the central office project manager as well. So we want to be able to get you the most successful application that we can.
Very good. Thank you, Christine.
And one thing quickly, there was a question, Lynn Conrad had a question that I think I inadvertently moved over into the other side. I didn't know if she was asking about the window for tax credits.
Yes, actually. All right. Yeah, I was actually going to look for that one.
Yeah, I bumped it over to the answer inadvertently,
okay.
But I did want to take a minute. So with all our programs, there's generally a window. Some are always open. Our tax credit programs, our neighborhood assistance program does not have a set date of a window. It's generally when we get our guidelines approved, they always try and open it in April. It never seems to, it usually ends up in May. But there are specific windows for programs, and they may vary from year to year. Some of the CFA programs have defined windows, but as an example, the multimodal was supposed to open on March 1st. It was supposed to be approved at the next meeting. Because the meeting's not taking place, that window is going to change. So it's usually, again, best to contact us if you're looking at a specific program, and we can give you some insight where we have it as to when the windows may open.
Very good. Thank you very much. I think those were all for you. For Jean and our tourism officials, are you collecting room tax on Airbnbs and VRBO? If so, is it helpful when submitting a grant application to provide the number of each in the area?
We do collect. The money is collected. Room tax is collected on.
That was recent legislation, right? Just a year or two ago. Yeah.
Just about 2 years ago. It does come in as a lump sum, and they do not list out where individual properties don't report that. VRBO, all of those, anything online, they come in one clump. If you do know of any nearby that you're going to help promote through your grant application, by all means, list them in the grant application.
Very good. Robin, did you have anything you wanted to add on to that? I'm not sure if Bradford County operates any differently on that.
No, there's no difference. That all online travel companies and home sharing by separate acts of the state 2 years ago, both were passed. That comes directly through the county treasurers, which collects the tax, and whatever information they share moves to us.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our next ones were for the PHMC. Karen, you had mentioned, one of the requirements was public accessibility. Can that be fulfilled by making them available to the public by appointment?
Yes, but I will tell you that part of the grant application does talk about how the building is public, and obviously a museum that has scant hours, maybe only by appointment, are sometimes evaluated on the public benefit at a lower rate than something that does have set hours. So, and if you're selected for funding, we do ask that you make agreement with the PHMC over a certain amount of time that it will maintain public accessibility. So some of those questions, we'll have to continue on the future past the grant project itself, but because it's important, it's the intent of the program that the public can enjoy the property. But I think we certainly understand in more rural areas of the Commonwealth, there might not be a more active or consistent tourism season, I guess.
Very good. Thank you.
And if I can,
yeah, go ahead.
Just chime in. Same with DCNR. We do have a public accessibility requirement as well. We do have with land acquisitions, we do have the criteria that you can make reasonable access hours, like from dawn to dusk, but you cannot close properties off that you've acquired with state dollars.
Very good. Thank you. And also for the PHMC, this is from Mr. Reynolds. Is it possible to apply for a matching grant on the basis of anticipated revenue? If that is that true for other agencies, say for an event? For example, if we were planning a fair and had seed money of, say, $1,000 and anticipated revenue of $2,000 based on past performance, could we apply for a matching grant of $3,000 to be paid after the fact, with the understanding that the award would be reduced if we did not meet our goal? Loaded question.
Yeah, it is. Well, the example in and of itself doesn't meet the eligibility grant requirements of our grant programs. Unfortunately, we can't do funding for events or, educational activities or lyceums or symposiums. But the essence of the question is, you're fulfilling the grant application and the companion grant contract with an expectation that a certain project will be completed. So the expectation is, if you're not able to raise the matching funds, are you able to complete the project as you're contracted to do with the available funding that you have to do it? And if the answer is yes, that certainly meets the spirit of the grant contract and the application. So we would just reduce the grant award that's being asked for. But if you are not successful in even raising enough match to complete a project as a whole, we would probably have to cancel the grant award because it's to complete a contracted project.
Gotcha.
Hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I hope that answers the question too. Also for you, you were pretty popular today. Does determined eligible for National Register of Historic Places mean that they need to currently be seeking registration with the National Historic Places, or just that they qualify for that designation?
Well, the determination of eligibility, that is an excellent question. I'm sorry I wasn't that clear on that. The National Register process in Pennsylvania includes the opportunity to ask if your property meets the criteria of the National Register. And we often just easily I probably off the cuff call it eligible for listing for the National Register. So you at least have needed to have your property identified and evaluated by our office through a historic resource survey form to receive that designation that it's been determined eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. If you kind of think of it as a two-step process, so internally our staff has decided that it meets the criteria. It doesn't need to be fully listed. We do ask that properties have been evaluated in a more recent 5-year period. Obviously, properties can change a lot from things that we might have evaluated for eligibility back in the 1980s. And I think the second part of that is if they're part of a downtown historic district, yes, I mean, certainly properties can be listed in the National Register as a historic district, or even been determined eligible for the National Register as a historic district. Some of that documentation would have included something called a historic resource inventory, and our office is able to look, or you as the applicant are able to look at that documentation that was prepared with that National Register nomination to identify that the specific property contributes to the historic significance of that resource. And then of course, yes, you'd be eligible to apply for grant funding.
Very good. Thank you very much. King, can you define promotional materials or give some examples? Promotional materials would essentially be, falls under what the tourism agency is trying to do. Promotional materials is we wouldn't, if you were doing an event that had to do with outdoor recreation or history or something like that, we couldn't actually fund the promotional advertising for said event or program. We actually help with the event or program itself. By getting you the funding to complete your trail project, or say for example the Keystone Theater does educational programming for environmental stewardship. So basically, we wouldn't help them fund their advertising to get students into that program. We would fund the program itself and help them put it on for the children in the community. So yeah, that's essentially what you would want to get a room tax grant for. You're looking for that promotional funding to help, get your event out there for the public to see.
Kane, another way that we describe them are what our friend Janet Sweeney says the most, the tchotchkes, the water bottles, the magnets, the t-shirts, the little bags. You can't use state dollars for those types of promotional materials.
Correct. Very good. And this is for everybody, so I'm going to throw it out.
On the tourism side, it would be like brochures and things of that nature.
Right.
Would be considered promotional brochures, advertisements.
Cards, yeah, all that stuff. Very good. And this is for all speakers. My nonprofit was recently endowed a large parcel, and with it, the nonprofit dream come true, a substantial gas royalty lease. Can this contract count toward matching cash funds? Will the contract fulfill a letter of commitment with the fracking company, who is unlikely to give us letters? Interesting.
I can address that, Kane.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, I guess the short answer is no. A contract would not for DCD programs. But if you're getting royalties, obviously you have the cash match.
Right.
But any match has to be in some form of cash or in-kind contribution for most projects. Again, it's going to be specific to the programs for DCED. Some do not require a match, some do. Some matches can be waived. So it's always going to be program specific for us. However, when we do require a match, we either have to have evidence that you have it on hand or a high probability that you'll have availability of those funds to match. And that goes to the point that most of our grants are paid as invoices. A lot of them are paid invoices when you submit, and we'd be looking for the match to be into the project before we did any reimbursement of costs.
Paul?
Yes.
This is Christine. For the DCED, the Greenways Trails and Recreation Program, property though, vacant property that is going to be developed through the Greenways Trails and Recreation Program, the property itself, the appraised value can be used as match, correct?
Yes, and that's consistent with a lot of our programs, that if you have a property itself, that's the hard asset. But the gas royalty lease itself, because it could potentially not produce, that wouldn't be eligible. Although we would look at that and say, if you have revenue coming in, it would give us a lot of confidence that you're going to be able to come up with that match if you didn't have it in pocket immediately. A lot of times we'll ask for just the financials to show that the entity has the amount of the money they say they do in the application to commit to the match. Again, that goes to the competitiveness. We have a lot of instances where we're trying to evaluate which particular projects to approve. So we want to make sure that the ones we do have the highest likelihood to actually make it through and be completed.
And I just want to clarify, DCNR does not use land value as a match. In some cases, we have accepted if a property is being donated at the same time as the project, but this would be DCED, their program that would accept land value as a match.
Correct. And again, I always say we're going to look at the program specific, because some do and some don't, and they can change from time to time too. For example, our multimodal fund, which we're still waiting for the CFA to approve. The last 3 years, as part of the fiscal code, they waived the match, and that was not something that was normal. But if you go to the PennDOT multimodal, they are still requiring a match, but then you can still request to have the match waived under certain circumstances. So it's variable. There's really no one size fits all. But to this specific question, the gas royalty lease, I don't know if anybody has any instance where that would work in any of the programs. I certainly wouldn't in ours.
Same with ours.
Yeah, not ours either. I mean, like I said, once you started collecting those royalties and got them into your budget, you could obviously use that revenue as cash match. But the contract itself really wouldn't make much of a difference in the application. All right. Let's see. Katie asks, I am an LLC property company in Susquehanna County, renting to an LLC who is a community arts center owned by a woman. Can I apply for a grant to remodel our facade on Main Street in Forest City?
So yeah, this is right up our alley. I actually am working in Forest City. We did some work there on the streetscape. So Katie, probably familiar with that work that's being done with the streetscape work. Your specific question, not you by yourself. Generally, our facade programs would work and they would be eligible for application into one of our programs, but they would be part of a broader a broader application of multiple facade applications under our Keystone program. Now, because you're, and I don't know, I know there was a facade program on Route 6, the Route 6 line, I believe, Cam, I don't know if you guys were involved with that.
Yes.
Certain entities may have facade programs that are available or eligible that you can individually apply for, and you would be able to apply for that facade under that program. But facades can be fulfilled under other programs. Our neighborhood assistance program could potentially work in this case. So that's possible. There are multiple ways to get facades done. So again, variables that are usually project specific, and that would be something we would want to explore more in detail of, what you are, what the business is, the circumstances, and see if we can find a place to apply.
Very good. Yes, we did bring the Route 6 facade program to the Endless Mountains this year. Our administrative assistant, Vanessa Billing-Sealer, is actually the program coordinator for that. And we worked with the Route 6 Alliance and funding from the DCED to do about 30 projects across Bradford and Wyoming counties where Route 6, comes through our region. So a very successful project. Everyone was very satisfied to see all the new facades go up. Most of them are already, complete or on their way to completion. So we really appreciate it.
In your application, when you put that in, you had to identify the facades up front, correct?
I believe so. I don't want to speak for Vanessa, but I believe so, yes.
That's generally how it is. Generally, we know the specific facades that are coming in for our applications. So it's not like it's a little hard to just say, we have one, can we jump in somewhere? You need to look, it needs to be part of a broader effort.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. I'll see if we have any other questions. All right, well, we got a nice thank you at the end, so that's good. And they found the information useful. So I guess that was the whole goal of the entire workshop. So if there are no more questions, we finished about 15 minutes early. We suspected about 12:30. So here we are at quarter after and already finished up. So I want to thank once again the Wyoming County Chamber of Commerce for helping us get this all organized. And I really want to thank all of our panelists. You guys were absolutely great. Not too many questions, so apparently you all did a very good job of explaining your programs and what you have available to the public. So want to thank everyone once again. You all did an outstanding job, and we hopefully will be able to do this next year in person, but we'll see where it goes from here. But thank you very much, and it was great to see you all.
Thanks, Kane. Everybody have a great day.
All
right. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
All right.